Hi, grade 12s. It's Miss Cubbin here. We're learning about the urinary system. So this is in your textbook. If you have it at home, page 158 to 169. And while we go through this presentation, there's two things you're going to need, and these are on your assignment page as well. So I'm just going to show you them. So the first thing that you're going to go through is there's this worksheet that we're going to work through together as we go. So I'll tell you to pause at certain points, come to this and fill it out. So make sure you do that as we go. It'll make it easier. And then the other thing you've got is this urinary system videos sheet. So since you can't click on the links in the PowerPoint, we've got this, I've made this sheet for you so you can come here and click on the links so you don't have to search everything, okay? So those are the two things that you're going to need, and we'll get started with this presentation. So here's our first activity. So this is called 3-2-1 bridge, and we're going to only fill in this side of the sheet right now. So just fill in this part. You're going to respond to the question, what do you think of when you think of the urinary system? So we haven't learned anything about it, but you probably know some things. So first, think of 3 words, then 2 questions, and 1 metaphor or analogy. Okay, so this is where you're going to stop watching. So just press pause and go to your worksheet here, and you've got this side to fill out right now. Okay, so I'm going to give you a minute or 2 to do that. So you pause now and go do that. Okay, so now that you've come back after doing that, you've just done this left side. I'm going to do the right side at the end. So that's when you do it at the end, but for now you're leaving it blank. It's kind of showing your learning. So this is my example. These are my 3 words, these are my 2 questions, and my 1 metaphor and analogy. So my analogy is that your urinary system is like their water recycling plant. So you get rid of the unwanted contaminants when you pee. And so hopefully you'll have some different questions and words as well, and maybe we'll answer some as we go along. Okay, so you can see this side is still blank because we haven't done our learning yet. So let's get started with our learning. So here we have our overview of the urinary system. So you can see we have our kidneys. So we have 2 kidneys, and there's one on the left and one on the right that kind of opposite each other. And then they lead down into your bladder, and then that leads to your urethra. Okay, so when you cut open your kidney, it would look like this, and we'll go into a little bit more detail of what the kidney looks like afterwards. So the urinary system prevents waste from accumulating in your body because most of the waste ends up in your blood. You can see we've talked about that a little bit with carbon dioxide and oxygen, and your respiratory system getting rid of the carbon dioxide. So you can see again there's a big blood going in and out, and that's the filtering process happening. So again, here's another view. You can see kind of where they are in relation to all of your other organs. They're kind of tucked in behind here. So they're actually right near your back, and you can see right below the liver here. So they're bean-shaped. You often hear them as bean-shaped organs. They're located against the back in the upper abdominal area. And so the right kidney is a little bit lower than the left because of that liver there. It needs to leave room for that. So that's why they're a little bit off-center. And when you feel pain in your kidneys, it feels like your back hurts because they're kind of right against your back there. You can see again in that image with all the muscles overlaid. So that's, if you've heard like the saying, you got a kidney shot, hit in your kidney, it's really painful, that's a hit in your back. So you can see that it's a little bit higher than you might think, kind of your mid-back, because it needs to be, it's helpful for it to be near your heart with all the blood supply, and then the ureters lead down into your bladder. So this is kind of the whole system. It looks pretty simple, but there's a lot going on in those kidneys. So it is quite complex in the kidneys, but the rest of it is pretty simple. So you've got, like I said, 2 kidneys with ureters that lead into your bladder, and that's where your urine is stored until you excrete it. So your renal arteries and veins are really vital to this process. So you can see here. So remember, the arteries are going to be red because they're oxygenated, and then the veins are blue because they're deoxygenated. So they go in here and then come out again. So you've got them on both sides there. And you can see this is your diaphragm as well. So right below your diaphragm. So this This is one of the points where we're going to take a break. So you're going to go watch this video. It's a quick video break. It's about how your kidneys work, so it's about 4 minutes. So obviously you can't click on this link, I don't think, so you're going to go to your video page right here, and you can click on this link here. So we're on slide 7, how do your kidneys work? Okay, so I'll give you a minute to go watch that. Actually 4 minutes. Okay, so hopefully you found this really interesting. It's a little bit more detailed overview of how your kidneys work and how it kind of works in the whole system. If you have any questions about that, you can throw them in the urinary system page, and we'll try and answer them in there, okay? So that channel in Teams, you can throw them in there. So when we're talking about excretion, we're talking about how the kidney is getting rid of the body waste products, and these are the waste products from metabolism. So excretion is anytime we get rid of that. So your cells are always going through metabolism because they need that to convert food into energy, right? That's where we get all our energy, and obviously, like any process, this creates waste. So some of these get exhaled, again, like I said, with CO2, and some of these get peed out, which is our excretion from the urinary system. And just a note, defecation isn't excretion because feces is not the waste product of metabolism, it's undigested food. So there's a little difference there, which is kind of interesting, just the language we use. So what is your pee telling you? So your urine contains a lot of different things. It has water, nitrogenous waste, ions, salts, and more vitamins, hormones, and medicines. It's getting rid of all of those wastes. So the color of your urine also tells you a little bit of how hydrated or dehydrated you are. And sometimes your pee can actually change depending on what you eat. So if you have taken certain medications, it can be a different color. Or I think if you eat beets, it changes color. So things like that, depending on what you eat, it can change color. But also the color of it can mean that there are some problems if it's kind of continual and it's not changing depending on what you eat, right? So the lighter your pee is, the more hydrated you are, and the more kind of browny yellow it is, the less hydrated you are. So I don't know if you've noticed, but maybe when you wake up after you slept all night, you haven't really drank anything, and your pee will be a darker color. But then after having a few glasses of water or something like that, it'll be lighter because you're more hydrated. So you can see, look at this chart and read it. You can pause if you want to read it and see kind of where it gives you some recommendations for drinking water, which is super important. So I talked a little bit about the kidney structure. So this is a little bit more detailed of the kind of structure and all the different arteries that go into it. And you can see there's an adrenal gland on top here, which is important as well. And you can see kind of the left and rights. Remember, we did that game with the heart, trying to remember our left and right. So the left, again, is over here because it's opposite. You're looking, it's as if you were there. It's not kind of looking right at it. It's the anatomical view, and the right is over here. So, and then again, that's the abdominal aorta, which we saw in our dissection of with the pig block, and that's the diaphragm there, because you can see the aorta is coming through that. So, the urinary system has a few different structures, and the functions of these are here. So the renal artery obviously delivers blood to the kidneys because it's an artery, and the vein takes blood away. The ureters transport urine to the bladder, which I mentioned earlier, and the bladder stores urine, and the urethra passes urine to the outside of the body. Okay, so that's kind of the brief overview. We're going to go into a little bit of detail with the kidney now. So this is on your worksheet part 2. So if we go back here, we can scroll down. This is part 2. So if you're able to print this, you can print this off and label it in color. If you don't have a printer, you can just draw it out. So this video here that we've got, again, that's in your video list. So that's video 2 here. It's actually a hand-drawn tutorial. So they draw it out on the screen for you, so you can copy that if you want. And what you're going to do is you're going to label these and color them in. So you might be like, what, label? We don't know these parts yet. So if you want, you can test yourself and see if you can use this image here. If we go back one slide, to label them, but that could be kind of challenging with some of these photo labels in the top here. They're not on there. So I've got it labeled for you, obviously. So these are all the labels for it. So you pause your video and you're going to label them And then you're also, if you can, you're going to color it in, because we anatomy coloring, right? So I've added a more simple version. I want you to use the labels up here because they're more detailed. We're going to talk a little bit more about these different parts next week when we talk about the function, really go detailed about the function of how urine is created. But you can color it in with this colors here. So these are the colors, and then these are the labels. Okay, so there's, I'm going to pause now and go and do this. Okay, great. Thanks for doing that. I hope your images look really great. Again, this worksheet has a shark on it, so you're going to need to upload it. You could take a photo of what you've colored and replace the diagram that I've given you in Word with that photo. That would be a great way of doing it. So we've talked a little bit, well, we didn't talk about it, but you've drawn and you've labeled the cortex, the medulla, the pelvis, and let's see, we didn't label any nephrons, but in the nephrons, we're going to go into a lot more detail next week, but this is kind of the functions of each of these parts. Okay, so we're going to go into more detail of that next week, but I wanted you to get a basic function idea of what they are since you've labeled them. So the cortex is the outer layer that dips down into a radial striated layer. So you can kind of see that with these little striations here. And then the cortex is, oops, sorry, I just said the cortex. So sorry. The medulla consists of cone-shaped tissue masses called renal pyramids, and the pelvis is the central space, which is continuous with the ureter. So that's where the urine gets collected. And the nephron is what produces the urine, and they're positioned so that the urine flows into collecting duct. So if we go back here, and you're looking at your diagram, you can see, where's my mouse? You can see the cortex here, so this whole area down here. We've got the medulla, this whole area here, and we've got the pyramids right here. So each of these are pyramids. Okay, hopefully that helps a little bit more. We'll go into a lot more detail next week. Okay, so that we've gone over that. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the kidney's role in homeostasis. So remember, homeostasis is kind of how we want our body to be, and it is the kind of resting state without any issues in it. So we want our body to be working properly. So kidneys help a lot with that because they carry out the excretion of metabolic waste, which is mostly nitrogen waste. So they get rid of all of that. And we really, really need that to be gotten rid of. I think it mentioned in one of the videos you watched that if you don't get rid of it, you'll end up dying just because it'll all kind of pile up and soon your cells will be overwhelmed. They also maintain a normal water-salt balance of the blood, so keeping the blood at a normal volume and pressure. They maintain the acid-base balance of food, and they have a hormonal function, which we'll discuss more later, but that is with ADH and aldosterone. Okay, so these are the main four functions. So 4 functions of the kidney that keeps homeostasis going. So hopefully that makes sense. Go into a little bit more detail of how this is done next week. So now I'm going to go to part 3, consider the following. So I've put down 4 videos here. You're going to watch at least 2 of them. So watch 2 of them and answer at least 2 of the questions on the worksheet. So this is part 3 on your worksheet. So if I go there, part 3, consider the following. So again, it says those instructions there. If you have a lot of time and you really want to, you can answer all 4 of them. So you've got the questions in bold for them, okay? So go ahead and pause and do that. And we've just got another minute or so on this video. So if you wanted to watch the end and then go and do questions, you could do that as well. Actually, we're basically done. So then last thing, hopefully that this is all making sense. Again, if you have questions, probably other people are asking these questions. So just like you would put your hand up in class and ask the question, you can type the question in onto the urinary channel and I'll answer it. So see if you can think of some questions to put on there. You can also maybe add some questions from your 3-2-1 bridge on there. Hopefully we've answered that question. So you can, once you've finished these videos, you can go back and do your 3-2-1 bridge, the second part of it, okay? So that's what you would be doing at the end of this. So next week, we're going to look at how urine is made, and we're also going to talk about kidney stones, dialysis, and dissection. And if there's something that you really, really want to learn about, again, ask those questions in the urinary channel, and we will answer them. Okay, so have a great week and come to the meeting, and we'll see you there.